Good morning. I am going to make another video today that I also should have made a long time ago. Not quite sure where to start. And I've been putting this off for the longest time as well. I had like a good 10 years break in what shall I say? Well, I guess the easiest to just start with the beginning. I've mentioned in my previous video already that I have spent time in Belgium and that I decided to come back to South Africa. Now, there is a whole lot behind that too. And for me, it's difficult to know where to start because I'm not one with airs around me. But in this case, I was sent back here with a reason. I tried to get myself out of that. it's I just always said no. Why me? It's not right. Anyway, I guess there's nobody else who wanted to do it or could do it. I'm after all one of the Marys. I spent 5 years in Belgium. I went there initially with the idea that I could tell people about what's going on in South Africa, about the lies. The whole apartheid setup was a classical truth in lies and lies in truth. But it was also a question of one person, where do you start? I tried, and dismal failure, I can say, because Europe just didn't want to know it. It was as if they were so brainwashed with propaganda that they were fed that no other option existed, or that they had their orders as to what they should believe, and to hell with the rest, quite literally. Over time, I sort of gave up on it. But around about 2007, 2008, it was sort of various things getting together, but I woke up one night in the middle of the night with this booming voice in my ears and a flash of light. There are people that won't believe it, and I don't care. Do what you want. I heard this voice. Jy is die boerevolk, gaan sê dit vir hulle. And I was totally flattened because it didn't make sense to me. Up to that point, I always know, and I always knew that I was a boer. But I also eventually fell for that story that, the Afrikaners and the Boers, maybe we are now one and the same. And that voice, it was sort of reverberating through me, and I couldn't ignore it. Now, my house in Belgium was a double story. My office, I was a translator, my office was downstairs. So this was in the middle of the night, and I thought, okay, let me go and find out if there's something more I can find out. Boerevolk, why that why that booming sound? Why that? Okay, I went down to my office and I started Googling, and I discovered the biggest bull about the boerevolk. it really, I got really, really riled up. Now, shortly after that, I got the letter for the email from my ex that I must check some translation of his. That I've already discussed, so I'm not going to go there again. But it was as if things were just basically compounding and one thing layered onto the other, and it just carried on. Along the way, I also got this sort of voice in my mind. Wat het Siener gesê? And I wanted to Google that too. And everybody who's ever Googled anything will know that you get pages and pages and pages and pages full of things. I got one hit. And that was reference to Frick Pretorius' website. He wrote the compilations of Siener's visions. Long story short, I contacted him because I also started getting funny dreams. And one dream had me really, really riled up. I'll make another video on that. I'm not going to add that here because it will become too much. I contacted him, I explained to him what my dream was and things like that. And he said to me, look, we need to speak. When are you coming to South Africa again? And I said, well, I'm actually planning on coming down soon. I must go and double check the dates, but as far as I know, that was the February. I've got the information on my computer still. Anyway, I organized that I would go and see him when I'm back in South Africa. I came to visit my parents, so my mom took me to go and see him, and we had a good chat. And he put me onto the other history of the world and why my dreams about warning people about things to come would also sort of fit together with everything. Again, as I say, I will make another video on this. Suffice to say that with everything that happened together, I knew I had to come back to South Africa, and I had to come and warn the Boer folk about something as well. Now, luckily, these things, one gets hints, and as it starts bothering you, you start getting more and more answers. Unfortunately, you also get more questions. For every answer you get another 3-4 questions. So by now I had a huge stack of questions in my mind, lots of answers that started popping in again. To make a long story short, I kept on saying no, but I think that voice got to the wrong person because it wasn't for me. I remember getting up one morning. Now I had the habit of taking my Bible and just opening it somewhere, first asking for a message, and the Bible would open and I would normally get a message. Now I was starting to get very upset with all these things that were storming into my mind, and the one specific morning I said, just give me a clear answer because this is now really getting too much for me. Open the Bible. And now, okay, I have read my Bible through from A to Z quite a few times because I'm also into history, archaeology, biblical history especially. And there's one book that I never sort of stopped with. I read through it because it was in the middle of the Bible, and that was the book of Amos. Now my Bible opened on Amos that morning. So I opened and I said in my typical voice, okay, now what am I supposed to look at? And that voice said to me, what do you see first? Now that was Amos 3 verses 6 and 7. You can go and read it yourself. I might put it in here in a scroll for those who don't have a Bible close by. And I promptly closed the Bible and I thought, nah, it's not for me. And I said, okay, please, I'm going to open my Bible again. Now, please give me a good message. Open the Bible. It was the book of Amos again. And it wasn't as if my Bible would open there because I read that chapter often, because quite honestly, I did not. And again, I said, okay, now what am I supposed to see here? And that voice said to me, listen, read the whole chapter. There's only 9 chapters. It's not a lot. All of it is important, but the important bits will jump out. I'm not going to go into details because those messages were sort of for me to give me an idea of what I was supposed to do. I decided then, okay, all right, I was going to go back to South Africa anyway, but now it's a definite, and I started putting the ball rolling. And somewhere in July of 2009, my container was packed up with everything I was going to take back to South Africa. And the morning before the container was rocked up, I was sitting there on my bed, really uptight, tears streaming down my cheeks, and I was saying, am I doing the right thing? Because I'm leaving all my kids behind because they've since moved to Europe. I wanted to know if I was doing the right thing to pack up and go back. Just because I heard voices in my head. Am I crazy or what? Anyway, that voice said to me, get out of bed and go and look out of the window. So I got out of the bed, looked out of the window. Across the ring road, there was a garage. It was in Tiene in Belgium. I looked at the garage and I said to this voice, what am I supposed to see? And this voice just said, don't worry, you'll see later. I thought, okay, that's now this typical cryptical answers. But anyway, I got used to that by now. I'll just leave it at that. My son-in-law came through but later the morning to come and help me pack up and make sure everything gets packed into the container. And when the guys came on and start packing the boxes, I told him the whole story and I said to him, what do you think? This is weird. He just shook his shoulders. By then, my kids must have been used to their mum being a little bit nutty or whatever. Anyway, after lunch, he went to fetch the kids from school, and he came charging into the house, and he said to me, Mama, kyk by die venster uit. So I ran to my lounge, looked out of the window, and this garage that I was looking at that morning, you know, the typical flat roofs that garages have in front in the courtyard where you go and fuel your car. This garage roof was lying on the road next to the garage, lifted off clearly. I still don't know what happened there, whether it was wind. Couldn't have been construction work because there were no cranes or anything to lift it off, but the roof was taken off that garage. It's lying on the floor, and that voice told me that morning to look at that thing. And he said to me, wait, you'll see. Okay, well, then I knew, all right, there's definitely something to this. So I came back to South Africa. I already explained that I had this group then, because of in Trots daarop, where I didn't discuss politics because I absolutely hate politics. I'm not going to go into too much detail about everything, but one thing that did sort of happen by the wayside, I got more and more messages that I had to share with people, and it was like the ones that I've shared lately about things that people believe that is just not right, and that the time is now right that they start learning the truth. And well, obviously that it didn't go well with the people who do not want that truth to come out. So I got threats, not to mention the empty vessels or stage props, as I call them, that did not want you to talk about their belief in the Bible and the way they see things, because that was set in stone. And I mean, the Bible was sort of handed down there by God's own hands, according to them. They do not realize that Bible was compiled by Constantine after a lot of people were killed because they did not believe the way he wanted to put it together. Anyway, it's things like that I knew I had to come and share. But because I got such a lot of flack, and it wasn't funny, and it wasn't, yeah. Anyway, I sort of slowed down with that. I didn't do everything as much as I should. I admit that now. The group was closed, so I thought, okay, well, I could have carried on my page, I guess, but with the group being closed, I sort of, typical human, thought, okay, that's a good enough excuse, so I wound it down a bit more. Then I had my accident, and now I realize maybe that accident was also sort of one to show me, listen, you have to do what you have to do, otherwise you're gonna get, you will feel it. Because I also wondered, how did I manage to get out of that accident alive? And my kids were unharmed. It was just me that, I couldn't say I walked out of it, because I had a broken back. They had to come and fetch me on a trauma board. Anyway, I got out of it alive, and I started walking again. And a few days ago, after I made the previous video, it was as if that voice said to me, now, do you realize that you were helped out of that accident? Okay, there's one other thing to mention. I have since then to now gone through deep waters. Anything that could go wrong has gone wrong. Anyway, I eventually realized, probably since I started getting this message, that's it, it's time. And I know it is time. I'm not going to try and get out of this anymore. I'm going to do what I must do. I know there's going to be a lot of flack. I know there's a lot of people that will not want to hear it. But sorry, I don't have a choice. If I don't say what's in my heart that I know I must say, then I didn't do what I need to do. I didn't go in the name Mary. And the long line of all the oldest women in my family for centuries, for no reason. I accept that now, and I will do what needs to be done. I will say what's on my heart, and I know those with ears to hear will hear it, and the rest, the message is not for you anyway. Okay, so where was I? I have for quite a time also realized something else that I didn't really like, and I didn't actually want to say it out loud, because saying something out loud sometimes sort of means you endorse it or you agree with it. But it was as if I attract all the evil in the world, and as if I was a magnet for people to just come and lie and cheat and misuse and whatever. I have had so many experiences of people that have just really taking the mickey out of it. This is all I could say. Old souls have got one problem. It's not really a problem, but it's something that's misused by the empty vessels, the stage props as I call them, the soulless human beings. Because we've got compassion, we always want to help. And you've got those people who have learned how to drain your energy, how to absolutely suck you dry, and to take every grain they can get from you. So needless to say, I've been on the receiving end of that for basically all my life. That's one of the reasons why I stay on the farm, to keep me away from those energy vampires and whatever. But then finally I got the answer. Well, I got it previously already, but I didn't want to admit it again, because saying that out loud, as I say, it sort of endorses it. But then finally I realized it is time. It really is time. Now, what is it time for? It's actually time to smile and to become happy, I guess. Jesus gave us one of his parables, that of the wheat and the tares. It basically boils down to the wheat being planted, and then somebody came and they scattered weed seeds amongst them, tares. Now, what is the difference between tares and wheat? Tares look just like wheat, but it doesn't have wheat. It doesn't bear edible fruit. In fact, it's poisonous. Now, in the parable, Jesus also mentioned that initially you're not going to see the difference between them. You can't discern. And in the parable, it was said that the tares will have to stay until the end, because then, only then, will they bear their fruit. You'll recognize them, and the harvesters that the Lord will send will then be able to harvest the wheat and take the tares, separate them, and burn it. And yes, well, we've reached that stage. That's the time now. Now, I was sent, apart from telling my people to get out, away among the tares, I was also sent as sort of a magnet, sort of a mirror, to show who people really are within. It's like fishing bait. People now have to show what's in them. If you're good, you're going to show it. If you're bad, you're going to show it too. Because for too long, people thought they can get away with anything. And if you look around you now in the rest of the world, it's unbelievable, the evil that people get up to, and they think it's normal. I can just shake my head. If you look at this LBGT rubbish, now I've clarified that in one of my spinning videos. I have got nothing against, I'm talking about normal gay people, and there are people that's going to say me, but there is no such thing. Look, that's not what I'm going to discuss now. I'm here to talk about sick, perverse people. I'm talking about pedophiles. I'm talking about the absolute evil that's walking around on earth, and people think it's normal. They just do not realize what's going on anymore. Parents that leave their children to go to school to be taught the biggest rubbish under the sun, and they think it's normal because the government said it must be done like that. The world has gone crazy, and it cannot carry on like this. It won't carry on like this. But it is necessary to a point for the tares to show their lack of fruit, and for decent people to now stand up. There is another saying of Jesus. You cannot be lukewarm. You have to show what is in your heart. This time that we're in now, you're going to have to show what's in your heart. Now, I have, unfortunately, I can write a book on that, and I've got the names of all those who stabbed me in the back, who've really just showed that I couldn't care less when they knew somebody was absolutely down, and instead of helping me up when I was at my lowest, there were those that would actually step on me, in so many words. Because if you know somebody's having a hard time and you just basically turn your back on them, etc., that's what it boils down to. Anyway, that is not what this is about. This is about the fact that I've got to open my mouth now. I'm going to have to say what needs to be said. And if you don't want to hear it, tough luck. Close the door on your way out. You do not need to listen to what I've got to say. It's not for your ears anyway. I think that's enough. I'm not going to say much more, and I'm going to carry on spinning, but just relax. At least I've got this off my chest now, because I know I need to do this. And from here onwards, I will make maybe a weekly video. I don't know yet. I will listen to the voice in my head this time. I do have one problem though, that I do not have any decent cell phone reception here, so getting my videos up depends. I have to beg people to help me to do that. I don't have a vehicle because the banks and the vulture made sure he got that as well, after cutting through 2 third-party fences and basically, in other words, stealing it. But he showed he was a tear, so I know that he will be harvested and burned. Anyway, in the meanwhile, I will do what I can. I have unfortunately also discovered that there are very few people around me that bother to help. I am now really relying on Jesus hearing my call and helping where he can. My Heavenly Father insisted I do this, and well, I've done it now, so hopefully my luck will change. Anyway, for those who do not know it yet, it's a little bit late. I should have said this in the beginning. I'm Ricky Smuts. If this video is something for you, you can please like, subscribe, because I'm going to do more of this. And a heartfelt request. I will put a link below for buy me a coffee. That is basically my only income at this stage. So if you feel it in your heart, I would appreciate that. Thank you, and enjoy your day.